Evan Ross wasn't supposed to talk to royalty. Humans, especially janitors, were expected to keep their heads down in the glittering palace of the Xylar Dominion. Sweep, polish, vanish. But as he watched the princess stare at the shapes he'd drawn on the floor, he forgot the rules. Lyra tilted her head, eyes flicking from triangle to spiral. "You use these for calculations?" she asked, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Evan chuckled. "Not exactly. Back home, my daughter used to struggle with math, too. So I showed her how every number tells a story. This triangle here? It's not just three sides. It's balance, stability. That's what the number 3 means." She knelt beside him, curiosity overtaking sorrow. "Numbers have meaning?" "Everything has meaning if you look for it." He looked around for something to use. Finding a leaking pipe, he set a bucket under it. Plink, plink, plink. See that rhythm? That's counting in sound. You could build equations from music if you wanted to. Her expression changed, confusion melting into fascination. "Our tutors never said that. They said calculation is pure logic, without emotion." Evan smiled faintly. "That's the problem. Logic without emotion doesn't teach. It just commands." For a long moment, there was only the steady drip of the pipe and the hum of machinery. Then the second princess appeared, Nis, cautious but curious. "Lyra, Mother's guards are searching everywhere for you." Her eyes fell on the human. "You're teaching." Lyra's voice carried a strange mixture of defiance and wonder. "He's showing me something new." Evan rose, brushing his knees. "Don't worry, Your Highness. No rules broken, just a little floor geometry." Nis stepped closer. "Humans use floors for geometry?" Evan grinned. "When you don't have a classroom, the world becomes one." The twins exchanged glances, the silent communication of siblings. Then Nis sat down beside her sister, intrigued by herself. "Show us," she said. Evan blinked, surprised. "Show you what?" "How humans learn." So he did. With only a mop, a few rags, and a pocket of maintenance chips, he turned the corridor into a classroom. He showed them how humans use stories to understand numbers, how an equation could describe the way rain falls, or how a bridge stays standing. When they made mistakes, he didn't scold. He laughed, and so did they. By the time the royal guards found them, the metal floor was covered in symbols and laughter. A human janitor crouched beside 2 alien princesses, all 3 smiling like conspirators in a secret rebellion against perfection. The guards froze, unsure whether to arrest him or salute. From behind them came the low, unmistakable voice of Queen Jalara. "Explain," she commanded. Evan turned slowly, mop still in hand. "Your Majesty," he said, standing tall despite the sweat on his brow, "I'm just cleaning up a mess." "And what mess would that be, human?" He met her gaze without fear. "The one your tutors made when they taught your daughters to be afraid of learning." Silence filled the corridor. For the first time in years, no one dared breathe. And the queen, against every expectation, didn't strike him down. She simply whispered, "Continue."
The next morning, the royal tutors were dismissed. Their robes still shimmered with indignation as they floated out of the palace, whispering about humiliation and barbarism. In their place, a single human janitor stood awkwardly before the throne, mop polished, uniform clean, eyes wary. Queen Zalara regarded him with icy curiosity. You claim you can teach what my kind could not? Evan didn't claim anything. He simply nodded. I can try, but I'll need space, time, and no interruptions. Her advisors hissed, scandalized. A human teaching royal heirs? This is beneath. The queen raised a hand, silencing them. 1 lunar cycle, she decreed. Succeed, and your species will be honored. Fail, and you will be exiled to the outer mines. Evan's reply was simple. Deal. The classroom was a maintenance bay on the palace's lowest level. Pipes hissed overhead, and light flickered through translucent panels. It was far from royal, but it was alive with sound and motion, the kind of chaos humans thrived in. Lyra and Nis arrived in silk and suspicion. The expected lectures, instead, Evan handed them each a bucket of soapy water. We're not cleaning, Nissa protested. Nope, we're learning. You're going to calculate how much water you'll need to clean this entire floor. Their eyes widened. That's menial work. He grinned. No, it's applied mathematics. Ratios, volume, spatial measurement, error margins, everything your tutors taught, but with soap. Reluctantly, they began. At first it was clumsy. Lyra slipped. Nissa argued about precision. But then something shifted. They started working together, calculating faster, adjusting their angles, predicting splash arcs. The equations became physical, real, alive. Evan clapped. See, math isn't numbers. It's motion. The universe dances. You just learn the rhythm. That phrase stuck. The twins began calling his sessions human rhythms. Each day brought new lessons. Predicting water pressure by sound, estimating the number of stars seen through a dirty skylight, measuring pipe angles with shadows. Evan turned physics into play. When they asked why humans learned this way, he only smiled. Because we had to. We weren't born with advanced minds or telepathic gifts. We learned by touching, building, failing, and trying again. That's the human method. Not logic, but persistence. The twins listened, eyes wide. Their failures didn't sting anymore. They became puzzles to solve. And when they solved them, they didn't just memorize, they understood. Rumors began to spread through the palace. The once hopeless princesses were solving engineering problems far beyond their age. One night, they even repaired a malfunctioning gravity stabilizer using principles they'd learned from mop water displacement. Word reached the Queen's Council. It's a trick, a novelty. Human methods cannot produce real intellect. But when the Queen secretly watched from the shadows, saw her daughters laughing, thinking, daring, she felt something ancient stir. Pride. And perhaps envy. Because in their eyes, she saw something she hadn't seen since her own childhood. Wonder.
3 weeks passed like a whisper through the palace, and whispers turned to rumors, rumors to scandal. The alien queen's daughters, once pitied as the broken heirs, were now solving design flaws in the palace reactors and rewriting the equations of gravity flow. The court scholars didn't believe it. Could human teaching truly do what Xylar intellect could not? So they demanded a test of minds. Queen Shylara agreed. Let the truth decide, she declared. If the humans' methods are real, they will withstand the fire of scrutiny. The test would be public, broadcast across the Dominion. Billions would watch the twins and the human janitor who had dared to defy tradition. The Royal Academy of Sciences was a cathedral of light and sound. Floating glyphs shimmered across the vaulted dome. Rows of alien scholars, their minds linked through telepathy, filled the air with silent judgment.
Evan stood behind the twins, his mop polished like a staff of office. He didn't understand half the symbols glowing around him, but he understood fear and the courage it took to face it. Lyra and Nis stepped forward, their nervousness masked by matching calm. Across from them, the court's finest tutor, Master Voreth, bowed mockingly. Royal Highnesses, a simple test. Solve the equation of quantum phase instability. The hologram unfolded before them, an impossible lattice of shifting shapes. It wasn't just math. It was designed to break minds. The audience held its breath. Lyra's hands trembled. "Evan, I don't understand half of this." He leaned close, whispering, "Then don't start with half. Start with what you do understand." His voice was calm, steady, like a heartbeat in the storm. The twins began slowly, recalling his lessons. Every motion, every number had a rhythm. They visualized it not as symbols, but as sound, the pulse of the universe. The hologram twisted, fighting back, recalculating endlessly. It was meant to overwhelm. But Nis laughed in the middle of the challenge. "It's a feedback loop. Look, it's like the water circuit we built." Lyra followed her sister's lead, rewriting the base formula with quick, confident gestures. Together, they shifted the equation's parameters not by alien logic, but by intuition. And suddenly the lattice stabilized. The impossible equation became balanced, elegant, simple. The audience gasped. Master Voreth froze. That's not possible. You've rewritten the core variables." Evan stepped forward. "No, sir. They didn't rewrite the math. They rewrote the rules." The silence that followed was absolute. On the Queen's throne, Shylara's eyes shimmered with emotion she didn't fully understand. Her daughters, the ones her empire had mocked, had just performed an act of intellect that defied even her greatest scientists. The human janitor had taught her heirs something beyond mathematics. He'd taught them to think differently. As the crowd erupted into stunned applause and the holo recorders captured every second, Evan turned to his students and whispered, "See, I told you, it's just steps. You found your rhythm." The applause of the Royal Academy echoed across every star system of the Xylar Dominion. By dawn, the story had spread through every broadcast network. The Queen's hopeless daughters had solved the unsolvable, using human methods. At first, the Council tried to suppress it. It was luck, they insisted, anomaly, trickery. But data could not be denied. The impossible equation now stabilized entire reactor cores once thought volatile. Alien scientists from across the galaxy studied the results in disbelief. In the throne hall, Queen Xylara faced her daughters, and the human who had brought scandal and miracle in equal measure. Evan Ross stood humbly, mop in hand. He looked more like a tired father than a revolutionary teacher. Xylara descended the crystalline steps, her robes trailing light. "Your methods," she began, voice soft but edged with awe, "defy everything our empire believes about learning." Evan shrugged. "Guess that's what humans do best, defy expectations." Nis stepped forward, unable to contain herself. "Mother, it wasn't just his lessons. He made us feel what the numbers meant. He said every equation is like a heartbeat, steady, fragile, alive." Lyra nodded, her voice trembling. "He taught us to fail without fear, to try again." The Queen studied her children, radiant now with confidence, their eyes bright with curiosity and hope. She had spent her life commanding respect through fear, Yet here stood proof that growth came from something far stronger. "Human," she said quietly, "you have changed my daughters, and perhaps my people. What do you ask in return?" Evan blinked, caught off guard. "Ask? Nothing. I just wanted them to believe in themselves." For the first time, Queen Zalaras smiled, not the cold, ceremonial smile of a ruler, but the warm, startled smile of a mother. "Then belief will be your legacy." She turned to the watching court. "Let it be decreed. From this day forth, education in the Xylar Dominion shall follow the human method. Every mind, noble or common, will learn, not through fear of failure, but through courage to question." The court erupted. Some shouted in outrage, others in wonder. A few even bowed to the human janitor who had rewritten the way an empire thought. Evan only shook his head, muttering, "I'm still on the clock, you know." Lyra and Nis laughed, and the sound, so full of joy, rippled through the hall like sunlight breaking through clouds. Later, as the ceremony ended, Evan stood alone in the maintenance corridor where it had all begun. He looked at the cleaned floor, remembering the night he'd met a crying princess with tears in her eyes and equations in her heart. A soft voice broke his thoughts. "Evan," said Lyra, stepping beside him, "we've calculated something new." "Oh yeah? What's that?" Nis joined her sister. "That even in infinite equations, there's only one constant." "And what's that?" Lyra smiled. "Hope." He looked at them, two alien princesses who now thought like humans, and chuckled softly. "Guess that's the one number we never stop counting." As he walked away, mops slung over his shoulder, the hollow news blared across the galaxy. "Human Janitor rewrites the future of learning. The Queen's daughters lead a new age." And somewhere, far beyond the stars, humanity smiled back.